dwelling size, there wasn't any minimum for actual square footage per unit. Building coverage, Blue Springs is the only one who actually has something, 40% maximum coverage. That's more of a standardized number, I mean, just for general, unit, building coverage. Because you'll see the same with MF14 and MF20 is a little bit higher. So that's.
So how are they addressing the building coverage in Lake Seminole?
They're doing that elsewhere with the open space and such. I'm not sure if they have it more generalized building coverage overall.
They haven't. It's more or less balanced. I remember it's really balanced out by the other requirements for open space, which just puts an inherent restriction on how big your building can be.
So when we start looking at design standards, that's the way that you will address the building coverage versus laying out.
Right. All these other requirements kind of force it into a certain building coverage percentage-wise, and that's more of a traditional way to include, to address that is what Blue Springs has done, to be honest. And it seems to be, again, looking through this and trying to see what maybe newer codes do, that seems to be obviously going away from that building coverage type approach and looking at these other restrictions. So, and again, for example, Lee Summit has number of units per acre. We don't have that, and that's another way they can get the building coverage, because you have a minimum lot size per unit plus a number of units per acre, and that can get you to a similar percentage. Stories or height is again pretty comparable. It was a little unusual to see Lee Summit with 3-story.
When would you build a
duplexes.
3-story duplex?
Maybe for like a T&D type development.
Okay, so you think
If
for a
you're
T&D?
going more vertical than you are.
And that is an option with our form-based code for downtown. And I can't remember.
I know we're going to talk about it later.
Realistically, our duplexes are not going to really be doing more of the T&D
So
straight up
that'd
and
be
down. It's
the-
going to
that'd
be
be
more
the-
of your,
Right.
I guess your mixed use type, or your fourplexes or your row houses where you can go
Right.
up and you're going to go put them together.
But this would be an option for somebody who wanted to build a traditional neighborhood design
Right.
as T&D.
We call them in the downtown like a paired house,
Planning lingo.
back to back, but vertical more than
I guess
lateral.
would this fit, or would it go for more of a mixed use if you have a corner that you only fit 2 units on? I guess you can still use it as a mixed use as a fourplex.
I suppose so.
But if you were building
It's still
something that was
going-
all duplexes, you could do it under straight zoning, you wouldn't
Yes,
have to go for
exactly.
mixed use.
Just
So
go
this
mixed
gives them the option of, you wanted to build a T&D neighborhood with just duplexes, you wouldn't have to go under mixed use, you could go under
You give them
straight
the option
zoning,
to
and
do
you're
Stack
giving
one
them
on
that
top of
option.
the other, yeah, exactly.
Okay, it's got a little more flexibility.
Yep, so it does allow more of that. Again, the height requirement is still about the same, it's only 5 feet higher, but it does specify stories, and I think that in and of itself kind of acknowledges that there's other options than just going horizontal and laterally. Units per floor, again, it would be 1 or 2. There's really all the only options when you have 2 families, so unless we're going to start talking half. Setbacks, again, fairly comparable. Actually, Blue Springs for like front yard setbacks, and I think generally speaking is pretty standard. They have a major street setback in Lee Summit of 50 feet. Otherwise, they have 20 feet or 25. And I thought it was interesting that they have, for front-facing garages, to kind of discourage more of that they require those to be set back further. So either be a recessed garage or a garage on the side, set back further, or a rear entry garage.
It's a way to encourage that.
Encourage something other than just the kind of the snout houses where you got a garage sticking way up front, you can't even see the actual dwelling itself. Side yard is actually higher than both Lee Summit and Olathe at 8 feet. Usually building code does require 10-foot separation between buildings, unless you start talking about fire-rated walls and things of that sort. And that's why Lee Summit went down to 5 feet, because then you're still meeting that minimum of 10 feet, actual building separation from 5 and 5. Rear setback is a little bit lower, but here again, Lee Summit does allow a much smaller setback if you're talking about rear entry garage. Since they're discouraging front entry, it's again encouraging more rear entry. So their base zoning for two-family is geared toward more the kind of traditional neighborhood development type approach. But still with options for more the standard side-to-side duplex, because you still have 20 feet. You can still have front-facing garage, you just need to be 30 feet back. And then but you still need 20 feet in the rear. So, again, Olathe, they have some reductions. I don't know, Paige, you said, did you find that? About how they may be reduced? But a lot of these, Olathe allows a little bit more flexibility in terms of different exceptions, but I can't recall what the process was to do that.
For the lot size reduction, if you look down under open space requirements, it mentions that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for that one at least.
Okay. So allowing some trade-off then, if you have more open space, you can get some, the bonus is you get some smaller setbacks or lot sizes.
What's their qualification as active open space? Bike trail?
Right.
Playground.
Yeah, playground, something to that effect, more than just actual.
But would a gazebo be considered active gazebo where they put a
I think,
grill?
I think so.
yeah,
Yeah.
like more than just, passive would be just, lawn, excuse me, lawn area or a detention basin or something where there's not really a congregating area where people can actually do something. You found something in particular, or?
I was looking for
Okay.
the first question.
Parking again is pretty standard, 2 per dwelling unit. At least someone does have an interesting comment that 1 must be fully enclosed. So we're just still saying that
You have to have a garage?
you have to have a garage, you have to have something, at least one. And again, street width in that zoning district is pretty standard. They do allow 4 feet less. 24 feet is actually more of a standard kind of street, pavement width. Right of way is all the same, but again, our roadway is a little bit 4 feet extra. So again, that's showing a little bit more the newer nature of Lee Summit and Olathe's codes that they've reduced the minimum street width from 28 to 24. 24 is more common in 12-foot lanes, curb to curb, 28 feet, 24 feet, excuse me. So that's the two-family. Again, fairly comparable. Lee Summit again has a lot more options for doing something less traditional in terms of contemporary era, maybe more traditional times gone past, I suppose, but not traditional in terms of how side-to-side duplexes you see now with front-loaded garages. And Olathe again allows their exceptions to reducing some of those setbacks and such is if you provide some more open space.
I like Lee Summits. Probably 2 things that I really like about Lee Summits is, first of all, there's less words. I always like simple, so it's less wordy. I think it'll be easier for people to understand.
Right.
I like the fact that there's a 30-foot setback required for front-facing garages. I think that's a way to encourage creativity, because that's probably been something that we've heard from the Planning Commission and the City Council, that we have a lot of complexes that come forward to us, and the garage is the first thing you see. I think this would be a way to encourage more creativity and less, visual with the garage. And another one that I like in this is the 2 parking places and 1 must be enclosed. I think that's a good thing to have. I think that will help probably add to the quality of some of the projects. And the big thing is it's less complicated. It's more simple, kind of like what our current codes are. But I would love to hear input from the rest of the commission. Which one do you like better, Lee
Well,
Summit or
I agree with
Olathe?
you Summit, except take off the units per acre. It's pretty much, that's kind of, you get that however, with your
With
green space and everything
With our
else.
quality standards
Right.
that'll be later adopted,
Right.
that could be addressed.
You're only going 500 square foot per unit more than what Blue Springs is now, so it's a good step for us. But
So do they address that later in the when we get into more of the actual quality standards that are in place? Does Lee Summit address that a little bit more as far as reducing it with trade-offs?
Well, Lee Summit doesn't know Olathe, I mean.
Be reducing setbacks and things of that
He's
sort.
talking about that the dwelling units could be smaller. Instead of 4,500, they could be 4,000 square feet apiece if you incorporate other elements into the project.
Well, that'd be a hybrid then with Olathe.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get
Okay.
to. I mean, we're not just taking whole,
Sure,
Lee Summit
sure.
stuff.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
It's good and we'll change things, maybe either one of them doesn't
Okay.
have, but I just think of throwing a carrot out there for us
Sure.
will,
Well, yeah, clearly that's what Olathe's intent was.
and
You
9
provide
times out
some
of 10,
amenities.
I'm gonna go for the RP2, just, if it meets my designs that I have with the community, it only helps out the
So
community.
which one would you like Lee Summit, except for which part?
Yeah, I understand. Lee Summit, I like I'm just online on lot size right now. On the square footage per duplex. Jumping up to the 9,000 per duplex is fine, but allowing us to possibly have a reduction if we're meeting certain quantifications to 8,000, which is basically what we have now. And then I'm sorry, were you saying something?
I'll leave it.
Okay. On the store height, I'd like Lee Summits to be able to give us the option of going 3 stores. Like Blue Springs now, you can't go on any of our buildings 3 stories now, can you?
No.
No.
So,
3 story minimum.
and then on setbacks, I did have a quick question on all our streets on 20 foot. What if we're wanting to do more of a staggered per building? Will that give us the option to be able to do that?
Like a 20-foot average, you're saying?
Yeah, well, no, I'm not saying 20 foot out. I'm saying, say we have 5 foot, each building's 5 foot variation.
Uh-huh.
So you don't have all the snouts, all the
Oh,
garages
okay.
in a line. If we're wanting to give it a little bit of depth on that, which I think most people are going to do something different besides the old style now anyways, but
Well, these are minimums, so you could do further back. Are you saying
well,
do something
what if
less?
we want to put it up closer? Say we have rear entry garages
Mhm.
on them. Will that allow us to bring the front of the building up closer to the street to promote walkability?
On
Sure.
the front of the house
Uh-huh.
rather than the garage.
What he's trying to do is encourage staggering, which we
Sure.
want. You don't want to
Yeah.
have all of the duplexes in a row.
Right.
They're staggered, it's actually
Yeah.
more aesthetically appealing.
Sure.
So he's trying to look at a way to encourage building staggering, which could we do setback averaging, which I know we have this somewhere in our current
Yeah.
codes. Where what you're saying is you give one lot 5 feet more than the minimum standard, where the
Yeah,
other
4
one
or
you
5
could
foot,
take.
and it
if-
Yeah.
makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, and you can do that, but that variation is mostly with respect to the size of the house itself. So you perhaps would have a smaller house that would have a larger setback in the front yard, so wouldn't that be largely up to the developer?
Well, it's not just
in
that.
terms
Say
of
that we have
what-
20-foot setback. What if we wanted to put that house, it's a rear entry, we want to put that house closer up to the street
Yeah,
to promote walkability.
sure.
So we still, closer than the 20-foot average.
Okay.
The concern about doing setback averaging is that you almost always still have to have, or it's probably wise to have a minimum setback, because a 35-foot building front, 15 feet from the property line, can be overwhelming building front depending
Sure.
on how it's designed. But theoretically, with setback averaging, what you're saying is you could bring one house 15 feet and another house 25 feet, and you're averaging 20 feet, and that's what your minimum is.
Right.
And that's the concern about setback averaging. Even with averaging, you need to be cautious of what you want to allow close to the street front. When that's probably one of those huge, really kind of policy things is when you talk about particularly front setbacks.